How's it going, everybody? Let's get things started today. Hope everybody's excited to learn about some AI. Get this pulled up. And can everybody see my screen fine? Not sure which monitor it is on. There we go. So let me get this pulled up. Bear with me a moment. Alrighty. So let's kick things off. I'm Michael Hayes. I'm a lead developer at Media 3 Technologies, and I have what I like to consider a fair share of experience in Azure Cognitive Services, REST APIs, and more specifically, most importantly, ColdFusion. So I've been working with REST application development for quite some time, and OAuth applications, which is pretty much my bread and butter, and all of that I do through ColdFusion. A lot of the tools that I use to make my life a lot easier involve AI and cognitive services to some degree. To give you a little bit of background on what Media 3 does, we are a web hosting company. We have a hyper focus on high availability solutions and basically mission critical applications, things that can't go down. We've had extensive amounts of projects that, just basically grow our skill set, and it's an absolute pleasure being able to work with ColdFusion and be so involved with Adobe the way we are. We've been a partner with Adobe since even post ColdFusion days, so just to give you a feel for how far back we go with ColdFusion. And to kick things off, we'll go over a quick table of contents of what I'm going to cover in today's presentation. I don't know if anybody was able to catch my presentation in Vegas, but I touched base a lot on some of the backend utilities that I use to make my life easier. Things like PostMan, Swagger, other different platforms that help kickstart my REST development. But to go over the table of contents, pretty much I left a lot of the Postman stuff out and focused more on cognitive services this time. So we'll go over the history of AI, who the father of AI is, John McCarthy. He was an AI cognitive service scientist who actually is from Boston, and I myself is from Massachusetts, so it's definitely a nice connection there. We'll go over the different types of cognitive services, as well as different use cases and the different types. And the cognitive services that I primarily use are all on the Azure platform. And so what goes into that? What is Microsoft Azure? The different things that will go into actually getting started with some of these AI functionality and APIs. And that involves things like authentication and security on the development level, which is, all done, at least how I deal with it, is all done through OAuth. We'll take a quick overview of the Azure REST API. And then we'll briefly touch base on some of the different tools that I use, like Postman and stuff, to kickstart my development. To wrap it all together, we'll actually give some authentication examples, some tips and tricks, and I'll actually show you some generative AI and stuff. Actually, practical implementations of it. So John McCarthy, he is the father of artificial intelligence, and he was a pioneer in the fields of AI. He coined the term AI at a speech at Cambridge College, or Dartmouth College, sorry, in 19 56. And there was only a couple people in that room, which is definitely very interesting to think of, because anytime I'm thinking of John McCarthy, I like to imagine what would be going through my mind if I was in that room listening to that presentation at that time. So pretty much what I did a little bit in this presentation as well is I used some generative AI to give me some content, and I asked it a couple questions about the father of AI, John McCarthy, and here's what it had to say. John McCarthy was an American computer scientist and cognitive scientist who was a pioneer in the field of artificial intelligence. He's widely recognized as one of the founders of the field of AI. McCarthy was a professor at Stanford University from 1962 until his retirement in 2000. He was definitely an active guy, because unfortunately, the way he passed away was climbing the Himalayas. So the guy definitely had a interesting life. And then to follow that, I asked the generative AI to give me a compliment of John McCarthy, and this is what it had to say. I'll give you a minute to read that. And before I jump into the next section, I guess I'll take a moment to answer any questions that people may have. So if you want to hit the chat with anything you have, I'll take a moment and then move on to the next area. So this is something that I touched base on in my presentation in Vegas, which I largely believe we are completely out of anything that is deemed an AI winter. An AI winter is a decline in the interest and studying and development of artificial intelligence technologies. I think this year is going to be one of the largest years in AI so far, especially with the release of things like ChatGPT and OpenAI. And that's really what all of these things boil together to make is, the tools and utilities to make your life easier as a developer and to kickstart, just creativity as a whole. So AI winters, they were originally stemmed from the Lighthill report, which was a report published in 1973, and this pretty much speculated that AI has not lived up to the hype that people talked about. And a lot of that was from, pop culture and movies more or less romanticizing what AI actually does. Really, it's just to take out human interaction and to act as similarly and close as humans can to perform a job and make your life easier. And some of the statistics that at least that I focused on, based off of a report of tech leaders when they were asked about the benefits of adopting AI into their businesses. 84% said that it helps sustain a competitive advantage against the competitors. And this I absolutely believe is true. I think with some of the capabilities and some of the functionality that you're able to add in, especially with blending a bunch of these different cognitive services, it makes your life so much easier. And some of the use cases that you can come up with are just absolutely amazing. The practical implementations that you're able to do with little to no work, not little to no, but minimal work that you otherwise would have had to code from scratch before, is outstanding. So this also allows for new ventures and growth into areas that you otherwise wouldn't have been able to step into. But 75% said that AI, is directly related to allowing them to do that. This is one that I absolutely believe is true as well, which is boosting productivity and being able to take out the actual complexity and the time it takes to research some of the stuff and to find the correct answers. Reducing the time it takes to do that just increases the time that you can spend on being creative and focusing on development as a whole. Optimizing internal business operations. About 36% said that AI is directly related to that, as well as automating tasks. And I think we're going to see these numbers grow a large amount in the years to come. These are some more explanations of the data that you just saw. So I'll take a moment so you guys can look over that. I'm happy to answer any other questions as well if anybody has anything. So, comparing what used to go into creating machine learning algorithms and AI applications compared to what you're able to nowadays is night and day. Before, you actually had to write the algorithms and have a deep understanding of, linear algebra, as well as the time to train the model and to clean and scrub data. So dealing with the actual manipulation of data and structuring it into something that you can feed to a computer program it's hard. It's hard and it's cumbersome. And so that's what a lot of modern day applications they help prevent. And you are also limited to the actual compute power, which nowadays with things like Microsoft Azure, AWS, and other cloud platforms, this is really not a issue anymore in terms of scalability. You can scale for whatever your workload is, more or less, as long as you do it cost efficiently. And now you have real high compute capabilities, which is what I was just explaining, as well as REST APIs more or less being an industry standard. The reason why this is so crucial in modern applications and modern development is because this gives you a schema and a framework and format to work around, and you don't have to spend the time focusing on all the little nuances. You just get to focus on the actual product at hand that you are developing. What's amazing about some of this stuff too is that the Azure Cognitive Services, they're able to be containerized. And so if you are dealing with an offline application or something that you don't have direct internet connectivity, let's say, for example, you're working on something that's a submarine down in the bottom of the ocean, you can actually containerize a model that you train, and you can have it run on either a virtual machine or a container somewhere on an actual piece of hardware, and you're not limited to your internet connectivity. So that just increases the capabilities that scientists themselves as a whole can actually utilize some of these things. So what is AI? That is a very good question. And to break it down, it's a simulation of human intelligence in machines. They are programmed to think and learn like humans. It's a branch of computer science that deals with creating intelligent machines that can perform tasks that typically require human intelligence, such as understanding natural languages, recognizing images, and making decisions. So at the end, I'll actually show you some use cases done all through ColdFusion of image recognition, natural language processing, which is one of the main concepts of AI, and as well as it making decisions on your behalf. Different types of AIs and cognitive services. So one of the main ones being NLP, natural language processing. Sorry, what was that? A is the learning curve being corrupted for all these terms merging into one model. Not quite sure exactly what you. I think I understand what you're saying, but I can answer some more questions at the end, and we'll go over things. So next being image recognition. Another on this list being robotics, and that is, in a sense, you can tie a lot of these other things into robotics AI. Decision making, and this is one of the kind of hang-ups with AI is some of the moral dilemmas that come with decision making. Like some of these ethical decisions that AIs have to make is kind of the hang up on whether or not it will make the right decision. Going into predictive analytics, can it predict the correct decision to make? Does it know that its image recognition is an accurate prediction? And so, really, all of these things intertwine together into what I like to see it as generative AI, and that's kind of what we are seeing more with the release of OpenAI and other kind of chatbot AIs that are hitting the public market. So, this is all my kind of own opinion, but I would say that all of these complement each other in one fashion or another, and that's when you, the developer, if you have the correct tools and you have the capability to get all these, you're really able to encompass them all into one thing and just focus on the creativity. And the amount of use cases and stuff, I could spend hours talking about how you can merge a variety of these different AIs. But the beauty of it is that Microsoft Azure has taken out all of the complexities and make it so you can rapidly develop these. Some of the different types of AI, which they each have their own strengths and weaknesses. Here are a couple of the main ones. So, unsupervised learning. Supervised learning is a type of AI where the machine is trained on a labeled data set, meaning that the desired output for each input is provided. The machine then uses this labeled data to learn the relationship between inputs and outputs and can make predictions on new, unseen data. Again, stemming into the generative AI that we are starting to see in modern APIs. Unsupervised learning, which is a type of AI where the machine is not provided with labeled data. Instead, the machine must discover patterns and relationships in the data on its own. This is commonly used for things like clustering, anomaly detection, and density estimation, as well as things that a human just can't compute. Clearly we can't compute as much as a computer can. So, it's where AI steps in to do that computing for us. Semi-supervised learning, which is kind of a combination of the two, and it provides some labeled data and some unlabeled data. And over time, it should discover and make predictions on its own based off of what you previously have fed it. Again, that stems back to what I was talking about early on with the structure of data and being able to actually clean and format that in a way that a computer can, pick apart. So a couple more of the different types of AI. Reinforcement learning. Type of AI where the machine learns by trial and error. And this is more where you would just give it a task and you would give it some thresholds of what it's allowed to do, and it will just try everything it possibly can in order to get to that task most efficiently. One really good example of this is the Mar.io. So there was a developer who he wanted to create an AI to see how quickly he could have it complete Mario. And he did that. And he actually, you can see the neural net that it creates and stuff through that example. And you can find that on YouTube or Google if you just type Mar.io. That was something that kind of kickstarted my interest in AI. So I would recommend checking that out. Deep learning is a subfield of machine learning that is based off of an artificial neural networks and allows the machine to learn from large amounts of data and make decisions and predictions on its own. It's more where we're hoping to see things point towards in the years to come. But all of this is definitely still very new technology. So that's commonly used for things such as image and speech recognition, as well as NLP processing and self-driving cars. So I'm sure some of you, when you hear the term AI, your mind kind of jumps to self-driving Teslas, things like that. And if you think about it, they're really less of a car company and more of a data company, where every single mile of that car drives down the road, it sends data back to, Tesla servers, and they're compiling data and learning it, using it to make AI or their AIs, more efficient and make better predictions. So each of these different types that I just said, there's different tasks and problems depending on the outcome and the data. And I mean, I could go on for hours about each individual different type, but that's the general concepts of all of these. So, a term that I'm sure I've probably repeated myself a lot, but generative AI, and that's really a combination of all of these to give the end user or the developer, the best, the best functionality for what you're trying to accomplish. Some of these AIs and generative AI models, they're very repetitive, and it's all based off of numbers and stuff, which I mean clearly, but it's interesting, when you actually look into the math in the back end and the kind of concepts that these AIs take and the thought process, more or less, that they go through. And if you're just having it just make the most likely possibility, things will get caught into loops where, if you're having it pick the most probable next word in a sentence, it'll get caught into loops like, I don't know, or that is good. And being in a loop, that is not good. So they combat this with things like temperature, top P, top K, and these are all just a little bit more deeper level AI concepts that go into natural language processing. So one of the main things that I focused on when kind of revisiting this topic was OpenAI and the different engines that they have available. And I'll take a moment, and I'm actually just curious on everybody in the room. Who has heard of OpenAI? Who has heard of ChatGPT? If you could just take a moment and give a message in the lobby chat. If okay. Okay, that's interesting. I'm glad to see that I'm hearing a lot of people have used it. Awesome. Yeah, so I mean, I'm sure you guys were blown away with it as much as I am. It's just, it's an amazing product, and that goes into boosting productivity. If you do not have to spend the time to think of the actual solution, then it makes your life easier. You can really just focus on the big picture and have these tools and utilities, or in this term being the AIs, it makes your life drastically easier. And so each of these have a different use case and pretty much what the model was built to do. But yeah, so if you haven't heard of ChatGPT, I'd recommend checking it out. So Azure, actually, they have this in public preview right now, where you have to apply for it. But the OpenAI is going to be publicly available on the Azure platform in the next upcoming months. And layering in the security and the identity management that you're able to add in with Azure applications and identity management, being able to tie that into functionality and instantly access cognitive services at your disposal is a truly remarkable thing. I mean, the functionality and capability that you can add almost instantaneous is just outstanding. So some of the different cognitive services is vision, language, search, knowledge, speech, decision, and emotion. And so a lot of these, there is ethical dilemmas that get brought up, and a variety of these cognitive services you have to apply and you have to get vetted and approved, because I'm sure you can think of unethical things that people can use with this type of technology. One thing that I've heard about is people actually using this new ChatGPT to use it to develop malware, which is a scary concept to think of. And so it definitely needs to be scrubbed and analyzed consistently and make sure that it's not used in a unethical way. But for example, one of them being the Face API that they have, and you have to apply for that because people can make unethical business decisions based off of what the AI analyzes and feeds you back, and it's clearly not ideal. So current changes and limitations to the AI to AIs, which is what I was just kind of discussing, but it's the issues you don't realize that will come up with AIs. So what was it? These are not on behalf of any individual specific network. I mean, I'm sure every single social media. Oh, did you just see that screen change, Hugh? I think a couple of the slides just looked similar. So that could just be me having generic slides, but pretty much some of the issues that go in with some of the issues that go into it are like data bias, for example. So clearly these things are only as smart as the information that you feed it. And so if you are grabbing data from a specific business, for example, or a specific organization, let's say this organization only deals with, I don't know, a younger demographic. And so the data that you're getting is primarily generated from a demographic with people between the ages of 20 and 30. If you generate an AI model based off of that data, chances are it is going to be biased towards and lean towards 20 or 30, the demographic from the data that it was generated from. And so in cases where it's coming from a very particular set of data points, then you get what's called data bias. And this can make, decisions and stuff that more or less are not most ideal for your use case. And so it really just boils down to being able to understand this as much as we possibly can, because we really can't fully understand AIs. I mean, we don't even fully understand the human brain. So that's why a lot of these things seem to have the skepticism from a lot of scientists, because they're considered black boxes. And if you actually research the kind of different moving pieces that make up an AI, one of the main pieces is considered the dark layer, where there's too much processing and computing that goes on that we cannot keep track of it. So I guess it's kind of a piece of where the skepticism that people might have nowadays comes from. So a couple of the other examples of AI cognitive services on Azure are anomaly detector, which I will give I'll show a use case done in ColdFusion with that. Content moderator, I also have a simple use case with that, and you can just imagine how that can be used. Making sure that there's not anything that's considered profanity or not ideal for whatever platform you're using it for. As well as a personalizer, which is tied to the Bing API and allows for you to be able to create specific basically key value pairs to track an individual user session. So that way, the next time they come back, you can see what that user was, see what they previously clicked on, and thus give personalized content recommendations based off of past interactions. We have speech, which I have a couple different use cases for that I'll show. And what I did here is I used ChatGPT or OpenAI API, and I would generate, random text or content, and I would feed that into things like speech translation or text to speech to actually start blending some of these APIs. And it was a very fun project. I definitely, I wish I had more time to spend on it, but I'm sure you all know how that goes. Workload takes over. There's this vision, so computer vision, which will analyze content and images and videos. And for someone who's developing an e-commerce type platform, where say you're constantly uploading new products to put on your e-commerce platform, you can combine a combination of custom vision as well as computer vision to get a custom trained model that will only get smarter and better over time. So if you are, if you're, sorry, I just tripped up. I was reading the message. So if you are tagging a bunch of different images and stuff, and you need to group that into something that can be searched and archived, you can start with something like the computer vision, which will do its best to analyze an image and give you a description of it. A lot of the times it's only vaguely accurate, but it gives some funny captions and stuff for what it thinks that things are, and it's very blatant how it misinterpreted what it was. For example, it'll be a book on a desk, but the angle that it's at might make it look like it's a sandwich, and it will describe it as a sandwich for some reason. But it also gives you a bunch of tags pre-generated, which those are actually a lot more accurate. And so you can take those pre-generated tags from the computer vision, and then through a custom vision, you can train your own model, which takes a minimum of 5 tags each and then 3 images at minimum. So you pretty much have 15 data points to start with. And you feed it that, and it is off to the races. And so the more images you give it and the more human in the loop intervention that you provide it, the better it'll get at whatever use case you are using it for. And then language. So things like entity recognition, sentiment analysis, question answering, conversational language understanding, and translator. So to be able to automatically translate things in real time to 100 different languages is pretty remarkable. And, where nowadays it's the World Wide Web. So you're not limited to just people in your local area, like how businesses kind of used to be limited, 20, 30 years ago. And so you do need to be multilingual, and the average person typically is not. I mean, speaking for myself, I'm not multilingual, but I can use AI to conversate with any language, and it's pretty amazing. So these are some of the AI cognitive services that I will be going over shortly after I get through this presentation and actually start showing you a use case that Media 3 will have a mini cognitive services platform available for people to use for free in the next upcoming weeks. Things like anomaly detector, content moderator, so I just had it grab a random image from an API and just, give me a score, whether that is profanity or deemed, explicit content or anything like that. The API that I used, it never feeds anything back like that for obvious reasons, but I'll show you that use case and how it goes about actually tagging things and stuff after. The Face API, which unfortunately I do not have a use case or practical implementation here to showcase today, but hopefully in the years to come I get granted access to that. And pretty much, just some visuals for everything I already explained. So before I hop into the actual, examples, I'd like to conclude things with just saying that it's a rapidly growing and rapidly emerging field, and there is a lot of nuances and hangups that we are still yet to even discover. And so this pretty much boils down to each and every one of you plays an important part with keeping the growth and the safe development and research of this going in the future. And that is the overall, the overall outline of this. And I guess I will hop into a quick Q&A, and then we'll show some ColdFusion use cases and how you can actually use some of this in ColdFusion. So why don't I take a moment for questions if anybody has any. Questions, comments, concerns. Tell me what you liked, what you hated. So, pretty much we will, this will be something that we will make available in the next upcoming weeks. And really all this is a just playground for testing and developing with some basic cognitive services. This is all written through ColdFusion and has so I primarily have used Azure. I have dabbled with AWS, and we have customers that have used AWS for some of the AI services that they have. Personally, I would recommend Azure, but that's just because I'm going to be biased no matter what you say. I love Azure. I live and breathe it. So, yeah, my opinion will always be Azure versus AWS. But again, that is a very biased opinion. Do not let me sway you. Do not let me steer you one direction or not. I would say test them both and see which one is easier, best for you to use. But Azure, I like the Azure Active Directory AD applications that you are able to use for authentication. And this drastically simplifies single sign-on as well as identity management and security. And so you can layer in things like biometrics security for multi-factor, and depending on the organization connecting and their rules, you can make everything as secure as you possibly can. So. That's a very good comment, Subu. And you're absolutely right. It definitely does seem like it is almost a saturated field, or becoming a saturated field. And I'm not here to say that Media 3 is, we rely on AI cognitive services because, at the end of the day, we don't rely on this. But for future growth and for future development and to be able to do what we envision, absolutely AI will play a large role in making sure that that happens, especially with things like alerting. So being able to get a dynamic threshold of metrics that you have on a series of machines and be able to find anything that is out of the norm and get alerted on it. Things like that absolutely play into day-to-day critical business applications, and that's things that we use on a day-to-day basis. So I wouldn't say that Media 3 is trying to heavily get into AI or be an AI company or anything like that. I'm just showing the ways that we use it and the ways that it really makes our lives easier in a practical use case. So hopefully that answers your question, Sabu. So pretty much this is really just a basic mini developer platform. It's just supposed to streamline your life for managing the authentication and giving you kind of pre-written code in an easy way. And so one of the main things, with things like anomaly detection and to be able to change the sensitivity and kind of ratio, what it deems an anomaly, as well as this will give the upper margins, the lower margins, and what it expects to see in a data set. This is just a basic visual representation using the Apex charts plugin, and then ColdFusion in the back end to perform the REST API calls and all that. So pretty basic, but all this will do is this will help you get the actual endpoints that you might need, as well as I have a simple breakdown of some components that I've written that will be available on this site once we do have it live, and you'll be able to download those components and use these for just simplifying your life when it comes to REST APIs and quick development. So that is the anomaly detector. We have the computer vision, and what this does, or what I have this page doing, is I use the I forget the name of the API, but it's pretty much just randomly grabs images, and I have it randomly grab between 1 and 6 images, and then tag those as well as give a description, and it breaks down and gives you the color palette that is able to be parsed from the image. Lorem Pixum, that was the name of this API, in case anyone was curious. And so we can see that we have a caption, and we can see it's pretty accurate here. I'll do a couple refreshes and we'll see. I'm sure we'll see ones that are not so accurate. But then you can see the variety of tags that it gives. And like I was saying, if you have an e-commerce platform where you're constantly adding new products to, and you don't want to have to spend the time to add tags, this at least gives you a starting place to work from, and start with the computer vision and work its way towards custom vision. And so you can take these tags that it provides, and without having to think of any of this, you can just say, okay, that's accurate, that's not accurate, and go on about your business. So that way, the more you feed it, the more accurate it's going to get, the better at predicting the decisions that you're going to make it, pretty much. And then, just the basic colors, and whether it's a black and white image, and the primary accent color. So all this stuff, again, and it is pretty basic, but that's kind of the whole point of it, is that it's taking something that is very complex and making it feel basic and simple, because that's what it should be. Dealing with an API or a new piece of technology, it should not take you a week or two to get going with it. With majority of these, I was able to get going in an hour or two. Actually, get an API call going and actually start working with it. And so minimizing the amount of time that you have to take to deal with being efficient with a new piece of technology, it just stems back to making you a more efficient developer and growing, whether it's it's your own company or growing at the company that you're at. It's really just leads to growth. So the content moderator right here, this is very similar to what you see on the computer vision, and this is just doing a different API to grab a different image, and this just pretty much tells you whether it's adult classified or a racy image or not. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty basic, but let's reload computer vision so you can see some inaccurate captions, because I want you guys to be very aware that you do still have to monitor this data and look at what is going to be being output to your end users. These are all pretty accurate. This one isn't. So we can see that that is clearly very inaccurate. But if you squint your eyes a little bit, it kind of looks like that. Kind of looks like a small boat in a body of water. So I guess you can see how it misinterpreted that. And then right here for the language example, What I did was I used the text sentiment and predictive analysis to predict sentiment on a random generated dialogue between two people. So I had ChatGPT generate a random dialogue, and then I break down that dialogue and give you sentiment analysis on each of those. And so even right there, that was a way to blend the different AIs and cognitive services that I've talked about and get a a practical use case. So I'm really using one AI to test another AI. And we will see this example right here. Yeah, it's definitely a little slow, but as you can see that it just gives you a basic score of whether it was negative, whether it was positive, as well as some things like the length and things like that. This is really just a primitive way to get the context, I guess I would say, of a piece of text. So if you have a ticketing system and you want to be aware of any negative responses that get put in, you could set up a webhook or something to automatically determine a sentiment analysis, and if it's negative or below a certain score, let you know on that, so you can talk to your text to figure out why. So that's language, and I guess I'll just generate another random one. Don't like that. It's clear this one's being rather negative, as we can see. So next example or use case is speech services, and this actually takes a Chat GPT and generates a random question, a random joke, and then we can see it actually. Yeah, the jokes are pretty bad, might I add, but let's actually hear it say one of these jokes to us using a neural voice. Let's do one of the do this one. Takes a second to generate that MP3. That might not actually output my volume, so my apologies on that. I guess we can't see that example today, but we can look at a very, very poorly written joke that was written from ChatGPT. And I was honestly blown away with the neural voices that they have. And one of the really cool things that they have with the speech services is you can do what's called a voice font. And so think of Geico, for example, or Progressive. And I don't know why I'm using car insurance commercials, but just in my mind, I always think of like the same voice or the same person that they have inside of at these commercials. And so they actually can use a font and make sure that any neural voice that you generate after there matches that exact voice. And so you can use that as, almost vocal branding in a sense. And so to keep things consistent, you can make a custom neural voice. Yeah, I mean, we may put some actors out of work, but hopefully there's some jobs that are generated with this as well. But yeah, so that is one of the dilemmas that comes with AIs is that there will be some scenarios where it takes away jobs, but hopefully it's adding to jobs and increasing our quality of life. So and then it's one of the last ones being is the Translator. Yeah, I mean you could create a whole audience based on AI. It's actually I think half you guys in here are AI. I'm kidding. Yeah, that's a very good point, Jeff. And Microsoft actually, they just came out with a new cognitive service that I have not delved into yet. But yes, Gary, that is a very obvious criminal application is voice spoofing, and that's actually what I was about to discuss. Is Microsoft is now able to pretty much clone a voice with a 3-second clip of your voice. And so, while that is very interesting, it is very nerve-wracking in a sense that, oh, people could develop criminal applications for voice spoofing and things like that. So this translator, though, right here, this is just a random text that it grabbed. So let me have it generate a new one. I don't have a button for it to regenerate, fortunately. So I just had it give it 5 different questions, and this will generate to a random language. Oh, that was the first time I saw that. Didn't generate something correctly, but and so again, this is using a variety of ChatGPT as well as text translation. You can see, we have a variety of different languages that we can translate from. And I also, what I plan on doing with this is what I coined a term just called backwards translation, where you want to make sure that if you are translating something to a foreign language and then back into your language, that it's legible and makes sense. Because what I've seen sometimes is almost the conjugations and the verbiage and stuff can get skewed between translations. And so what I had in mind was a way to be able to do a backwards translation and do a series of dialogue and be able to actually determine whether that will be backwards translatable to a foreign language and then back into yours. And if it doesn't translate with a specific degree of accuracy, then you cannot use that script for a different language. At least that was my initial use case and concept that I was thinking of adding to this. And that pretty much is what I have to show all you today. And then as well, right here, this will be this will allow you to generate individual different code blocks for the specific models and engines that are available to OpenAI. So you have a cloud-hosted ColdFusion CF. So pretty much what you're able to do, Bill, it's a very easy process to integrate with Azure, and that is there's single sign-on applications and Active Directory applications that you can create, and it makes it so you can create an account for free on Microsoft Azure, and they actually give you free credits. And then the Active Directory side of things, unless you're using the kind of beefed up and more secure version of it, which just involves the license, you can pretty much do it for free. So you can pretty much get started testing and using the Azure platform for free. And a lot of these cognitive services, actually every cognitive service that I showed in these examples, they're using a free tier. So you get up to a certain amount of calls per month for free. So you can get testing and start actually using some of the stuff with little to no cost. So Bill, that would be something that would all be on the Azure platform. You would pretty much have a series of like secrets and keys and stuff that you have to get, and then you would make an OAuth call to get an access token, and then with that access token, you can make calls to the APIs, and that's what some of this platform will pretty much assist you on. And I was going to say the API keys right here. These are, what you would be using to connect. So this site, I want to say in the next 2 weeks, but I don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. So definitely within the very foreseeable future, this will be up and available for anybody who's already using the Azure login. I mean, the Azure platform. You can log in with your existing username and password and stuff, consent to an app, and then use this for free of cost. And I plan on having this be entirely transparent, so that way you can see the session variables, application variables, and anything else. So that way you know that no information on you is being stored. Because, personally, me, I wouldn't want to be plugging in access tokens to someone else's site unless they were 100% transparent. So that is what I envision for this. Yeah, so I mean, any other questions, comments, concerns? Happy to go over anything now.